My name is Marissa Hale, and I live in a quiet little town called Windermere. People here know each other by name, and life moves at a gentle pace. I teach second grade at the local elementary school, a job that fills my days with crayons, soft laughter, and small moments of warmth. I've been married to Dylan for 7 years, and we have a 5-year-old daughter named Lily, the sunshine of our home. Our daily life has always felt steady and safe. Every morning, I take Lily to school before heading to my own classroom. In the afternoons, I prepare lessons, and in the evenings we cook dinner together as a family. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, slow, warm, and full of simple love. Still, in the past few months, I noticed something different about Dylan. He was out more often, checking his phone more than usual. I didn't know what it meant. I believed my life was moving peacefully, until his business trip changed everything. Before everything changed, our life felt beautifully ordinary. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still hear the soft rhythm of those evenings. Lily spinning around the living room in her princess dresses, her tiny feet tapping on the wooden floor while she laughed without a care. Dylan and I would watch her from the kitchen table, exchanging quiet smiles that felt like shared secrets of a happy life. Our dinners were filled with warm conversations. Dylan loved describing the cities he visited during his short business trips. Funny taxi drivers, unusual hotel breakfasts, or the strange way people in different places greeted each other. Lily would listen with her wide, curious eyes, and I would rest my chin on my hand, watching the two of them with a full heart. Those moments made me believe we were untouchable. Every night, after putting Lily to bed, Dylan and I shared a small ritual of our own. We brewed mint tea, sat on the balcony, and told each other about our day. Mine was always about my students, sticky fingers, cute drawings, small victories, while his stories sounded bigger, louder, more exciting. Still, even if our worlds were different, the tea and the time together felt sacred. Weekends were slow and gentle. We walked around Windermere Lake, letting the breeze cover us like a blanket. Dylan always carried the camera, taking candid pictures of me and Lily, her holding my hand, me brushing her hair, the three of us laughing together. Afterward, we would stop by the bakery to buy Lily her favorite vanilla bun. I trusted Dylan completely. I believed he was the perfect partner, the steady anchor of our little family. Back then, I often thought marriage was like a sweater I knitted with my own hands, each stitch tight, warm, and full of love. I never imagined a day when those stitches would begin to unravel. The shift began quietly, so quietly that at first, I told myself it was nothing. One Monday morning, while I was packing Lily's lunchbox, Dylan walked into the kitchen with his suitcase by the door. He cleared his throat and said, almost casually, "I have a business trip this week. Just 3 days. Connor and I will share a room like usual." I smiled, honestly, without a single doubt. I even helped fold his shirts, slipped a tiny drawing from Lily into his laptop bag, and kissed him goodbye at the door. I watched his car disappear down the street, believing everything was perfectly normal. But the uneasiness began the very first night. Dylan replied to my messages unusually slowly. His phone, which used to ping constantly with notifications from work, now stayed strangely silent. When I asked if he could video call so Lily could say goodnight, he texted, "Sorry babe. Too tired. Maybe tomorrow." Tomorrow came, but nothing changed. By the second night, that gentle tug of doubt grew sharper. Still, I tried to silence it. "He's just tired. He's working hard," I repeated to myself. Then, the unexpected happened. During Lily's nap time at school, my phone rang. It was Jenna, one of Dylan's co-workers. She sounded distracted, her voice rushed. "Hey Marissa, can you tell Dylan that Connor said he can't make the trip? His daughter is sick. So Dylan might have to sleep alone tonight." I froze. Sleep alone? Dylan had told me they were already sharing a room. Before I could ask anything else, Jenna apologized for the mix-up and hung up quickly. A tiny crack opened inside me, thin but undeniable. That evening, I asked Dylan if he and Connor had arrived at the hotel safely. He replied with a short message and a blurry picture of what he claimed was their room. The image was strangely dark, the angle awkward, but one detail stood out immediately. There was only one bed. A single double bed. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. My heart beat louder, but my mind kept whispering, there must be an explanation. Still, my fingers trembled slightly when I opened our shared family email account. We used it for travel plans, online bills, things that felt harmless. And there it was, an unread booking confirmation. The room was under Dylan's name. The guest details section listed 2 adults, but the second guest's name was left completely blank. Not Connor. No name at all. Worse, the check-in date didn't match what Dylan had told me. He had arrived a day earlier than he claimed. My breath hitched. The quiet kitchen suddenly felt cold. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And for the first time in 7 years of marriage, fear wrapped its fingers around my heart. Dylan returned late in the afternoon, rolling his suitcase inside with the same calm expression he always wore. But the moment he saw my face, his smile faltered. He must have sensed it, the storm waiting behind my silence. I waited until Lily went outside to play with our neighbor's kids. Then I said quietly, "We need to talk." He nodded slowly, almost reluctantly, and followed me into the living room. I sat across from him, feeling the weight of every heartbeat. I began gently, though my hands were cold. Why was there only one bed in the hotel room? His eyes flickered. "They messed up the reservation," he said quickly. "The hotel was fully booked, so we took whatever they gave us." I held his gaze. And Connor? Did he even go? The silence that followed was the longest I had ever lived through. Dylan's jaw tightened. His fingers tapped nervously against his knee. But he said nothing. Nothing was an answer. I reached for my phone and opened the email I had found. I placed it in front of him. "This is the booking confirmation," I said. My voice was calm, but inside, something was trembling. 2 adults. No second name. And the dates don't match what you told me. Dylan stared at the screen, then let out a long, defeated breath. His shoulders slumped. He didn't deny it this time. Finally, he said, "I went with someone else." The words hit harder than I expected. My chest tightened, my breath grew shallow. I swallowed. "Who?" He rubbed his forehead. "Just a new colleague. A woman. We had to go over the presentation together. That's all." "What's her name?" I asked softly. He paused. A second. Then 3. Too long. "Marissa, it's not what you think," he said instead of answering. "Nothing happened. We just shared the room because everything was booked. I should have told you earlier. I'm sorry. Really." But he still didn't look up. His eyes stayed fixed on the carpet, as if even meeting mine was too heavy. I felt something inside me go quiet, not a dramatic explosion, but a slow extinguishing, like a candle running out of air. "You lied, Dylan," I said. My voice surprised me, it sounded both fragile and strong. "Not once, but again and again." He reached for my hand, but I pulled it back instinctively. His voice cracked. "Please, it was just a misunderstanding. I swear." I stood up before he could finish. The room felt too small, too heavy with truth I never asked for. As I walked toward the hallway, I heard him whisper my name. But I didn't turn around. Because in that moment, I finally felt it. The trust one had cherished for 7 years had shattered, piece by delicate piece, right at my feet. And no apology could put it back together again. I packed a small suitcase for Lily and myself that night. Not because Dylan asked me to, and not because I wanted to punish him, but because my chest felt too heavy to breathe inside that house. I drove us to my mother's home, a small, quiet place just outside Windermere, where the air always smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The moment I stepped inside, everything felt still. Too still. Lily ran to the backyard to look for fireflies, leaving me alone in the living room. My mother didn't ask a single question. She only placed a warm hand on my shoulder before going to prepare dinner. That simple gesture almost made me cry, but the tears didn't come. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad in the way people imagine sadness. I just felt hollow, as if someone had quietly scooped out the center of my heart and left the outer shape behind. The next afternoon, my best friend Harper drove over with 2 cups of iced tea. She sat beside me on the porch swing, studying my expression. "You're blaming yourself, aren't you?" she said softly. I looked away. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I... No, Harper interrupted firmly. Do not finish that sentence. Someone else's choice to lie is never your failure. Her words hit something deep inside me. I didn't answer, but for the first time in days, I breathed a little easier. Every night, Dylan texted, "I miss you and Lily. Please let me explain. I made a mistake, but I can fix this." But his messages felt distant, like echoes from another life. The apologies that once meant everything now felt weightless, stripped of sincerity. One evening, as I watched Lily chase fireflies beneath the fading sky, a thought settled gently into my mind. Some things cannot be stitched back together, no matter how carefully you try. And strangely, that realization didn't crush me. It freed me, just a little. A tiny spark of calm began to glow inside my chest. Not hope yet, not forgiveness. Just the quiet sense that the world wasn't ending. Maybe, just maybe, I was starting to find my way back to myself. A week later, I returned to the house, alone this time. The air inside felt different, as if the walls themselves remembered every argument we never finished. I walked through each room slowly, touching the furniture, the framed photos, the corners where Lily once scattered her toys. It should have felt like home, but instead it felt like a place I was only visiting. Dylan stood in the doorway of our bedroom when I entered to pack my clothes. "Marissa, please," he said, his voice cracking. "We can fix this. I'll do anything you want. Just don't leave." But even then, he couldn't give me a clear explanation. No truth, no real confession. Only vague apologies and tangled excuses that led nowhere. I zipped my suitcase quietly and met his eyes. "I'm not leaving to punish you," I said. "I'm leaving because I can't stay in a place where I no longer recognize the person I married." His shoulders sank. For a moment, I saw the man he used to be, the one who made me laugh on rainy days and held my hand at doctor appointments when I was expecting Lily. But that man was gone, or maybe he had been fading long before I noticed. I walked out, closing the door gently behind me. The days that followed were unexpectedly peaceful. Slow, but steady. I woke up early each morning and jogged around Lake Windermere, breathing in the crisp air, watching sunlight shimmer across the surface of the water. I had forgotten how healing movement could be, how freeing it felt to push my body forward, step by step. I read books again, stories I once loved but abandoned somewhere along the chaos of marriage. At school, I poured my heart into teaching. My students seemed to sense the shift. They hugged me more, laughed louder, asked more questions. Their joy became my fuel. And Lily. We spent afternoons baking simple cookies, drawing colorful houses, and chasing birds in the backyard. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough to cling to me a little tighter. I held her every time, promising silently that I'd give her the stability she deserved. A new teacher joined our school mid-semester, Adrian Miller. He was calm, thoughtful, and carried himself with a quiet confidence. We worked together on the school's spring literacy project, and he always treated me with patience and respect. There was no romance, there didn't need to be. But every time he listened without judgment, every time he said, "You're doing great work, Marissa," I felt something inside me shift. Not toward him, but toward myself. I was relearning my own worth. Slowly, my laughter returned. My steps grew lighter. My heart no longer felt like a room filled with broken glass. I realized then that strength wasn't about holding on to someone who kept slipping away. Strength was standing tall, on my own, unshaken and whole again. Looking back now, I can see my journey with a clarity I didn't have while living through it. For a long time, I believed that love could survive anything, as long as we were patient, forgiving, and loyal. But what I learned is that love cannot grow where honesty has disappeared. Trust is the ground beneath it, and once that ground cracks, everything built on top begins to crumble. I share my story because I want others to understand what I finally did. Love is not just warm memories, shared routines, or promises whispered in the dark. Love is consistency. Love is accountability. Love is truth. The moment Dylan's words stopped matching his actions, the moment I felt myself shrinking instead of growing, that was when something inside me began to break. And when the truth finally revealed itself, painful as it was, it also opened a door I had been too afraid to touch. Choosing to leave wasn't about giving up. It was about choosing peace over confusion, strength over fear, and dignity over doubt. It was about giving Lily a mother who wasn't living half a life. Today, I live with my daughter in a small but bright apartment in Windermere. The air feels lighter. Our evenings are filled with music, homework, and laughter that doesn't hide behind anything. Dylan still sends messages sometimes, short apologies, vague promises, but they no longer pull at my heart. I've stepped out of that chapter, and I won't turn back. Because sometimes, walking away is the only way to save yourself. And the truth, sharp, painful, uninvited, is often the very thing that guides you toward the life you truly deserve. So I want to ask you, if you discovered a truth like mine, would you stay, or would you walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories that help you practice English every day, don't forget to subscribe and join me in the next video.